in your title to him, it's for the good of the game. Like, what are we doing as stewards to the game, to just like Kim's doing with her information? It's out there for consumption. You just have to go get it, right? Daryl does the same thing with a lot of his information. It's not there's no paywall there. It's, if you really want it and you want to seek out the information, I think that's why your stuff's so valuable. So if Aaron, to Kim's question, I mean, I think he has over 5,000 members of the coaches site right now. So they had, if I do a podcast or anything I do with them, even these blog posts and stuff, you're reaching, thousands and thousands of coaches. What they do with the information and how they consume it is up to them. But I think what Wally, what your, resource can do is give people, even if it's just a teaser, right? Like, hey, if you want more of this, or you want to actually do the workshop, this is a great way to contact you and do that. Or somebody that can do it for you. But the biggest thing is getting the word out there that this exists. It's needed. It's wanted. And to Kim's point, it's embraced when it's done. And I love that. I think that's the kind of, imagine this, imagine you could do that for the hour that you have in between tournament games, rather than, the kids sitting around with the one kid that brought his Xbox to the hotel room. So I just think it's a real great way of use of your resource and what you've done. And I agree with you. I think both governing bodies, including anybody outside of the world of hockey or in Europe, or, it's something they should embrace and use, and it's right there to take, so I think more people hopefully will take advantage of it.
No, thanks, Mike. I understand where you're coming from, and I really appreciate this opportunity to keep going, not to give up on something. I think it's has great potential. I've done over 100 sessions with different people, North America, individuals, small groups, associations, and it's really difficult just sort of doing the random grouping and getting them to implement it and seeing it take effect. I find with boards, Mike, local associations, executive boards, and I'm not sure the organization you work with or for, you seem to be a constant where you're coaching. And good coaches that get this tool and apply it, they're going to last forever as long as they coach, and impact athletes as long as they coach, and parents as long as they coach. So the gist of my motivation is coaches first. You're the ones that are going to drive the good of the game, and not be driven by what people say the good of the game is winning. And it just really can undermine the goodness that the game can serve. Mike?
Yeah, no, and Kim actually mentioned it earlier that, when I stopped coaching, and I really stepped away from even pursuing these college jobs anymore, because of just, trying to be home with the kids and trying to stay in one place and not have my wife look at me like I was crazy. To really what I've done in the last 4 years is with this whole Mike Benelli Hockey Solutions is just become a person who can go to a local youth organization. It's not like yours, Kim, where it's huge, right? Where there's hundreds and hundreds of kids and coaches. I'm going to these small organizations that don't have the resources of the expert on skate sharpening, the expert on equipment, the expert on off-ice development, the expert on nutrition. So what I've done is kind of build a niche with I don't know how many organizations I work with now, a lot, that I become like kind of their consultant hockey director, that I can come in and give them all these different siloed resources that they don't have to go, because most boards, and Wally, you've probably seen this too in Canada, most boards just roll over, right? It's the one parent that becomes president. They drive it because their kid's probably the best player on the team, and then they graduate out, and then it starts all over again, and people try to reinvent the organization every year. So what I try to do is come in and give some stability to organizations, so that no matter who comes in, there's some continuity in the development of the program. And our biggest thing is, building the best program, the first time, right? Not reinventing it every year, but to come up with these resources that, for me, it's 35, 40 years of being a hockey administrator, making plenty of mistakes and doing all the things wrong, like ordering the wrong size jerseys or setting up ice times incorrectly or not giving enough kids all the resources they need to develop. So I can come into those organizations and help them fill those voids. And I think this is one of those pieces that can help you build a culture in your program from the ground up. And you don't maybe have to start with the 14 and the 16 and the 18U coach that is quote unquote above this, right? Start with those fresh minds, those parents of the 8-year-olds that are just getting into the sport, and then to your point, build it from the bottom up. Just get year one under your belt with 5 or 6 coaches, and I think it's one of those things that grows within the ecosystem of your organization.
No, you're bang on. You've said everything I've always thought. The minute the child puts on his skates at 4 or 5, and then he might play a structured hockey at half ice. We call it Coach 1 is the certification level. And that is where you start. And I call it get a right start. Not only in X's and O's at that age, which there are an awful lot of gaps in terms of getting a right start. Like in all sports I know, you're taught the fundamentals of how to hold a baseball when you throw it.
Right.
Well, in hockey, you're not taught about stick length and how to hold a stick. It's that fundamental to being able to execute skills. But what matters more than that, they'll figure out how to hold it and play whatever length you have. But what harm is being done socially, emotionally by the sport? And when we look at adult behaviors that are occurring in many different minor sports, parents fighting in the stands, difficulty of getting officials, the big picture of what sports should be doing, I think that's the big thing, biggest thing of all. So, Kim, do you have anything to add on that? And I'm sure your role in Lee's side, some coaches did it. You might have batted 50%. And time will tell over time if those coaches continue the success of it. What is the youngest age, Kim, you start presenting that at?
Well, with this, so, I mean, as Mike alluded to, right, it's a huge organization. And so I can't be everything to everyone, especially in, we call this year 1B, since year 1A was the full COVID year last year. But, we have set some priorities at our younger age groups, and specifically with U9 and U11 on the competitive side. We have some very good learning programs here, fundamentals, learn to play, run by some very good instructors. So, to your point about the right start, they're getting that in terms of the on ice piece. Like we're fortunate, we've got some great female role models who run all our learn to play and our fundamentals programs, and some great parent volunteers. So I do chuckle when you talk about the stick length, because I did a Zoom call that I recorded for our entire organization about stick length and how to hold it properly. And parts of it have gone out on Instagram and Facebook and all of that. But I use 3 sticks. I use mine, which is short, even though I don't bend my knees anymore. My husband's, who's 6'5", and my 5-year-old stick. And I demonstrated like how the blade comes up when you use each one and all of that. And I shared that with our whole organization. And there's about, let's say, about 40 people on the call, mostly younger. We offered it to everybody with their families there, and mostly younger, mostly house league. And I said to people, hey, if you want to stay on at the end of the call, you can show me your Zoom screen. And I fixed about 10 kids' sticks. Just, hold it like this and do like this and all of that. But there's a little player I work with who's quite good. She's a minor, like double minor on the U9 team. She's very talented. And her mom and I went to summer camp back in the day, and she invited me to her backyard rink, and she does the classic thumb on top, chicken wing, top hand glued to the body, flick it with your bottom hand, like classic young rep female hockey player trying to get the puck in the air. So I gave her like just my little 5-year-old is with us. So I just gave her a little bit of feedback, don't squish the pillow, keep your glass of water full, this kind of stuff. So now her mom sends me a video every day. Kid is obsessed with not squishing the pillow, right? Like I knew this would happen, right? She's just taking it and running with it. Now she's the top hands up, and these little things, you're right, Wally, they make a huge difference. And I think that's the same with the mission statement or the values exercise, right? You plant the seed. Not every seed you plant's going to grow. I'm a downtown Toronto person. I don't think I've planted anything in my entire life, but not everything's going to flower, and people are going to get it at different times, right? So I think you just keep providing that information. And where I started with Leaside in increasing our resources was with the competitive coaches. So now we've created a coaches hub that it's password protected. Only our coaches have access to it. But I've also started, and that will be open to our house league coaches as well, and a different set of resources, or a accompanying set of resources for them, kind of more onboarding. But then we started another website, which I think I've sent you the link for, which is called the Wildcat Way, where I talk about player development, coach development, and culture development. And it's also password protected. So unless you play for our organization, you can't access it. It's not a paywall, but it's internal. And so I send out a monthly newsletter. I talk about cool things our Wildcat players are doing. So I just wrote one for the Olympics coming up. So we have a Corey Chevry, who's the assistant coach on the Olympic team. She does skills for some teams in our organization. She used to coach our U18 AA team. So I wrote a little feature on her. I broke down some video about Poulin and Johnson and Laroque. And I think stuff like that, is it necessarily super targeted? Like I said, holding your stick properly and mission statement and not shortening the bend. I mean, there's a million things to hit, but I think having resources and having a unified vision and a plan, like what Mike's talking about, and having a solution, that's what I'm trying to do here at Leaside, is have some best practices. Right? I don't know how many people read that newsletter every month. Actually, I do, because I can go check the analytics. But the fact it exists is as important of how many people read it, right? The fact that I ran that mission statement exercise with all those coaches, they know in the back of their head, they know that information, right? And then they can make a choice. They do it or they don't do it, right? It's just like me. I used to always have neutral zone face-offs in my practice plans, and in the 13 years I coached, I think I worked on them twice. Like it always fell to the bottom of the practice plan. It was never a priority for me, right? But I knew how to run them. I just didn't necessarily do them. I think that's what I'm trying to do in a huge organization. Like, I can't handhold everybody. Between House League and Rep, we have almost 80 teams. Like, I can't be on the ice with 80 teams. It's not possible, right? So how do you give them things that are impactful? How do you send stuff out that says, hey, like, we're trying to do things the right way? And I think that's how you make change, right? But again, do you have to have someone like a Mike or someone like me? Do you have to have someone whose explicit role is to do this? Because, I've gained a lot of respect for boards over the last 2 years as an officer on ours, and I had no idea what our hockey board did. Like, there I was as the junior coach being like, I get all the best players, I get all the best ice time, I get my own dressing room, like, look at me. And then someone would bitch about the board. I'd be like, I don't know what they're doing. Now I see what they're doing. I'm like, holy crap, a lot of stuff. And no different than coaches. Like, oh, well, let's just expect the board to do 20 other things to make it better. I do think the role that I have is unique in this area, but I think it's becoming less unique. I think more and more people are starting to bring people in who can be the development coordinator or the coach development, player development person, or however you frame it. Because I think there's a need to have a cohesive, coherent, you can't just keep going, okay, now look at this article, now look at this article, and now try this practice plan. Like, it has to be a whole. And I haven't created the whole yet. Don't get me wrong. I don't have the solution, but I'm working on it. And I think that's a missing piece. And I think there's now enough people who are listening to calls like this, who are on the coaches site, who've done this a long time. And I think we all think about hockey a little differently, maybe than a lot of traditional hockey coaches. Like, we're thinking big picture. We're not thinking, how does my team win the game tomorrow night? And I think that you need more people who are looking at it as a unified whole, as opposed to how do I get the W tomorrow. And I think that's what organizations could really benefit from. But, you know, I don't know how many of those people exist because I'm too busy trying to figure out what the heck I'm doing here. But yeah, I do know it has an impact, and everything you do to try to make it better, like I said, even if no one reads it, no one does it, they know you're trying to make it better, and you're not just doing what's always been done and accepting, you know, well, at least I'd always done this and it's fine, like nothing's burned down, so let's just keep going. And we could have chosen to do that. They could have chosen to do that. And I wonder how many organizations choose to do that, or as Mike said, or as you said, Wally, you know, the next dad, mom gets the presidency for their kid and they take it another way, and then the next year someone else takes it the other way.
I'd like to share my screen.